Hi, I'm Annette Benson, and I serve as the manager of the Intercultural Learning Hub, affectionately known by many as the HubICL. Since its creation in 2018, the Intercultural Learning Hub's toolbox has grown to contain more than 800 activities, assessments, debriefing and reflection prompts, media resources, and syllabi. Today, I'll be demonstrating how to get the most out of your toolbox search. As of spring 2023, the requirement to first log in before searching the toolbox is no longer in effect. You can now go directly to Discover, down to the digital toolbox, and then over to the left-hand menu. Or you can go up to the URL, HubICL.org/toolbox by putting that in your search engine, and then navigate over to the left-hand menu. Regardless of how you get there, once at the menu, it would be best practice to scroll all the way down to the bottom and work your way up. Starting at the bottom allows you to choose what is most important first, your learning outcome or outcomes. You will notice that we provide here the 6 learning outcomes included in the AAC&U Intercultural Knowledge and Competence Value rubric: the attitudes of openness and curiosity, the skills of intercultural empathy and of verbal and nonverbal communication, and the knowledge of self-awareness and worldview frameworks. For the purpose of our demonstration, let's choose openness as the learning outcome to be met by our learners. Moving upward, we see kinesthetic. Here we will need to choose yes or no, depending on whether there's room in our space for learners to move around, whether we want our learners to be more quiet, and whether our learners have the ability physically to move around. At Purdue University, where I am, the items in the toolbox are often used with a large lecture hall of several hundred students, or perhaps on public transportation because they're on study abroad. So the ability to move around could be limited. So we'll choose no under kinesthetic. For tool type, I'm looking for an experiential activity today, not an assessment or the other things offered. Since I will be using this in a classroom, I'll only give it 10 to 30 minutes as a maximum. I do not want to spend any money on this. In other words, if it requires materials, they need to be found in a typical office. I would prefer that the results of the search only include complete lesson plans. And finally, I've been having some trouble getting my students to talk deeply with one another in this hypothetical. So I'm going to choose pairs to give them practice in both listening and speaking. With that, my initial search is complete, so I will click Search. As you can see, I now have 8 search results, 3 with a blue book icon and 5 without. The blue book icon indicates a complete lesson plan written by Silmer staff members is present. The lack of the icon indicates that there is a lesson plan, but it was drawn from the internet and was not written by anyone from the Center for Intercultural Learning, Mentorship, Assessment, and Research. At this point, I could open each of the activities listed in results, or I could narrow the results even further by adding in parameters in the advanced search. In the advanced search, you can see what we have already chosen for parameters. Plus, there are theoretical frameworks added in to choose from. Since in this hypothetical, we recently have given our students the Intercultural Development Inventory, the IDI, we know that they are predominantly in the stages of polarization and minimization. We also have a goal that they would become more at ease with one another and enjoy one another's company. So we will choose friendship as a skill area that we would like to build by doing this activity. With the parameters from the advanced search added in, we now have only 4 results. Because we indicated in our search that we were looking for activities that are relatively short, and because I now see that my results do not have any of the blue lesson plan icons written by Silmar here, I would predict that the 4 results are all from Tiagi's collections of JOLTS. These would be short exercises written by Sivasalam Tyagarajan. I know this because of my experience, not because of anything that's on this page. Let's open one of our search results and see what's in there. I'm going to choose au contraire just because it's at the top of the page. Let's start by investigating the tabs present on this page. The Learning Objectives page reiterates the basics of your search at the top and then gives the source information in case you would need to cite a reference for the activity. The Objectives page also includes tags, which you can use to find another activity that's similar to this one in some way. For example, the tags for this page will take you to more activities by Tyagi, more of these short JOLTS, other activities that will help your students to see others' perspectives, and other activities that investigate proverbs. In Tiagi's version of this activity on the internet, he says that you'll need proverbs for your learners to discuss. So we have provided easily reproduced and manipulated cards for your learners to use during their discussion. They're in the downloads. The objective or the object of this activity is for you to find 2 proverbs which are in contradiction to one another, thus the title au contraire. In addition to giving you the au contraire proverbs cards, we also have created an answer key to help you quickly see which proverbs were meant to be in contradiction to one another. So, for example, in the United States, we might say, look before you leap, but we also say, he who hesitates is lost. And we also say, strike while the iron is hot. In links, we provide links to where you can find this activity on the internet, and also where we found examples of proverbs which seem to contradict one another. In materials, we provide a list of everything you will need to successfully facilitate this activity. We don't want you to get to the learning event unprepared. Notes includes things you might find it helpful to know. In this example, some sayings are repeated, might be helpful. Under related tools, we find that there is a similar activity in the HubICL that you could use in place of this one, but it has an incomplete lesson plan. The name of that exercise would be U.S. Proverbs and Core Values. There is space for you and others to leave a review should you use this activity with your group and would like to tell others how it went, what you would change, etc. And finally, there is a review of the theoretical frameworks that we originally chose in the advanced search, along with other search parameters that also would have recommended this activity. For example, this activity would be useful for students who are in the stage of denial, as well as polarization and minimization. And it could be used for those working to improve their skills and mentorship and leadership, as well as friendship, which we originally chose. For more ways to search in the Intercultural Learning Hub's toolbox, this time by subject or keyword, you might try starting with Discover and then going down to tags to get started. But that's a subject for another video. Happy hubbing!